June 27 marks a special date in the Czech Republic, Remembrance Day for the victims of the communist regime. That day was chosen in 2003 to honor the memory of Milada Horáková, a lawyer, politician, and Nazi resistor who was hanged along with others after a jail trial under the orders of the Soviet dictatorship. That happened in 1950. World War II was over, not Milada's fight for freedom, democracy, truth, and justice. Milada's film, directed by David Mrnka, was one of the first movies produced with Netflix. The film was nominated for 10 Czech Film Lions and was selected in the European Film Awards. David was born in Czechoslovakia and studied in Australia, where he established Lawless Vision Entertainment before moving to USA. He lives in Los Angeles, where he receives us. David, thank you for your time.
Hi, thank you.
Why did you choose Milada's story for your first film?
Simply because it was never made into a film, and Milada was very important figure in our country's history, in Czechoslovakian history, and not many people knew about her, past our borders. And I think to a degree, not many Czechs knew about her either. They knew the name, but they didn't really associate her with the fight for freedom, and they didn't quite in detail know what she has done for the country. So there were many reasons why I wanted to have a strong female-led film to be my first feature. It was an interest in her story and, fascination with her fight and ultimately what she paid for that fight.
You talked with her daughter. How were the conversations with Milada's daughter to approve the project and also the film?
She was quintessential. Without her, I wouldn't be able to make it. I was living in Australia, and I remember flying over to Washington, D.C. to meet her, just to ask her for a blessing, to get approval, not just over the story itself, but, to hopefully entice her enough to, cooperate on the script and, get the kind of personal details that were not available in archives. So it took me 10 years to make the film. So this is a long time ago. And the movie has been out about 5 years. So I was, in my mid-20s and she very thoroughly grilled me for about 3 days. She didn't say yes at first. She wanted to know how in depth I knew the story of her family. So I did, read up everything that I could. I went to archives, etc. And she was kind of, she was surprised that someone asking for the story, because there were people before me asking her to make the film. She was kind of surprised at how prepared I was. So at the end of the 3 days, I kind of conducted, the third day was, I remember I was asking her, I kind of felt like she's on board. So I started recording the interviews with her approval and asking her the difficult kind of questions, the personal questions about, what the relationship of hers with her mom was, because there was a lot that was not really available. So yeah, I wouldn't go, sorry to give you this lengthy answer, but I wouldn't go into a project without her blessing. And she was, very important during the script process and rewrites and kind of approving certain details, etc. So
I understand you wrote the script.
I wrote it. It went through a lot of rewrites in the process. It was very difficult to get a balance of introduction to who she was. Certain things were familiar to Czechs, but because I was doing the movie for Netflix, I wanted the worldwide audience to kind of have a comprehension of who she was. So for me, it was really difficult finding the balance of just explaining too much in a detail, not explaining enough. And I did write it as well. So
Why
Yeah.
did you choose an Israeli actress to play the role of Milada?
Simply because she was the best for the role. We did look for different options in the beginning, but then the moment I met Ayelet, it was kind of clear to me that she was the best for the role, and that proved to be right. You know, when we were shooting, and once kind of she finished it. But there were also kind of interesting little details. For instance, her mom comes from Slovakia, so she had very interesting reaction to reading the script for the first time. She had notes that were thoughtful, that were kind of encouraging, yet they were kind of understanding the role from a different perspective than, you know, just as a writer. So I kind of thought, yes, this is the right person for the role. She took a time to, which a lot of the actors don't do. She took a time to really think about the project from a different perspectives. And then, you know, while we met the first time, she immediately, you know, kind of had her opinion about it, which was really good.
Do you think your country owed a debt to Milada?
I think so. They still do.
Mm-hmm.
And in some way, you know, I'm happy that I don't want to take the credit for that, but like I'm happy that since the movie came out, there were a lot more happenings, you know, around the country, memorizing and remembering rather, you know, her death and why she did it. And there is a lot of like a little happenings, like for instance, last year or the year before, I think it was. The public radio announcement system, which really usually warns you against some kind of danger, etc., all over Prague, was broadcasting the pieces from her speech at the court, you know, the principles of democracy and stuff. And that was really touching when you opened up the windows, you know, at the end of June in Prague, and you smell the spring and summer coming in, and you really heard her words. That was really one of the most powerful things. And that wasn't really happening before the movie came out. So, yeah, the Czechs owe her a lot, I feel.
What about the new generations? They know Milada, Milada's history?
They know her better. Although I think the problem worldwide is that, you know, the emphasis is not being put on a history, but rather superficial, immediate consumption. I mean, you know, I don't want to be the one like an old man criticizing, you know, the new generation, but for the most part, I'm sometimes a little bit worried about how little they know, or how on surface they know, not just Milada, but, you know, just in general, the principles of democracy and what she fought for and how to retain it, because it's not automatic. But I do think that, you know, when the movie came out and I was doing these Q&As with schools around the country, it was encouraging. It was encouraging because I did it also in the US. Mm-hmm. And the reactions were really thoughtful. And that kind of made me happy that 14, 15-year-olds cried, and, you know, seeing the movie, and then they were questioning, you know, what she really fought for, what were the principles, and how do we avoid something like that happening again. So, you know, I'm hopeful, somewhat sometimes skeptic, but hopeful that they learn.
Yeah, but they understand the story, because Milada was in Nazi concentration camps, but the communists killed her.
Yeah, she once said this very famous sentence, and it's in the movie: the Germans didn't kill me, the Nazis didn't kill me, but the communists will, my own people will. And that's the scary part. Just, you know, it's not just scary, it's just so fundamentally showing the gist of communism and how the system works, because it learned from the Nazis, and it went many steps further.
Why do you think Milada didn't accept the offer to leave the country instead of paying with her life?
You know, there were complex reasons. I think it's like Navalny, he goes back to fight Putin, very similar regime to what she fought. I think it's a personal courage, which should be mentioned first. She knew the dangers. She did think that she would be warned if anything was to happen. But I think ultimately it comes down to her courage to basically fight the communists. She saw that there was so much work having to be done in the country, and when they came into power in 1948, it would be very difficult to do it from abroad in terms of literature, in terms of the news that she was passing on to, Western media and, publications, informing them about what was happening inside the regime, because she had a firsthand knowledge of it as being a member of parliament. And then when she stepped down, she still was close to those people who were informing them. So she felt it would be more appropriate for her to stay. And I think somewhat also miscalculated, the danger of it. So it's a complex.
Yeah, of course. Milada felt that she was at fault with her family.
I think that you mean when she decided to stay and they, yeah. I think that, her husband did kind of understand. He was one of those kind of, they had very unusual relationship back then, and I think even today, where he knew who he married and he encouraged her in whatever the decision she made. But I think that, they did have a difficulty with, the danger that was coming at them, and perhaps, I don't think that they were against her, that they would argue or anything like that, but I think that they kind of felt like maybe it would be a better thing for her to leave. But, those are kind of, I know her sister, she was very close to her sister who was in the movie towards the end, and she became pregnant, and when she was saying goodbye to her, and I know her sister kind of did support her, and later on took care of the daughter. But I do think that she might have had second thoughts about, what was coming at the family.
Of course. What about her daughter? How she remembers her?
I'm sad that she's living in Washington, D.C. She's going to celebrate 90th this year. So it's best this kind of question, she would answer it. But since she's not here, I think that she understood, yet I think it's difficult for anyone to come to terms with a woman who sacrifices a lot for her family, I do think that she didn't miss anything, or not that I think, but I know I asked her this question, did she suffer somehow with her mother's involvement, in politics? And she said she had her dad, and, mom would come back and, she was busy, but she definitely tried to fulfill the role. It wasn't like she left the family behind. And I hope that in the movie, that kind of juxtaposition is kind of felt, that, she was kind of trying to do it all, but, even today, women, no one can do it. I think it's kind of a difficult role women have to play in a workplace,
How important was your tribute for your country?
Sometimes you question whether the price she paid was too high, but anyway, that's a very personal decision.
David, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And this has been Cuarto de Hora, the Cadal TV program. See you soon. Ciao.